All right, we'll call this January 25th meeting to order. Commissioner Weiss will give you the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
First on the agenda, we've got approval of the agenda.
Move.
Motion by Feldheim, second by Weiss to approve the agenda. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are right on time for a second reading, possible adoption of 3 rezone ordinances.
We'll start with ordinance 209. This proposed ordinance applicant is Steve and Deborah Munger, looking to go from Agricultural Preservation District to Mini Ag. The legal description is Lot 2, Munger 2nd Edition, in the southeast quarter of Section T, 17T 121 North, R64 west of the 5th PM.
I'll move it.
Motion by Fikert, second by Gage. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Our next ordinance up for adoption is ordinance 210. This proposed ordinance applicant is Alex Bruce, looking to go from Agricultural Preservation District to Mini Ag. The legal address is Lot 1, Alex's first edition, in the south half of the southeast quarter of Section 36T 124 North, R65 west of the 5th PM.
Move.
Motion by Feldheim. Second by Fikert. Anyone here to speak on this ordinance? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
And we have proposed ordinance 211. This one, applicant Arietta Dargis, looking to go from Agricultural Preservation District to Mini Ag. Proposed Lot 1, Dargis Edition, in Section 14, T123 North, R60 west of the 5th PM.
Move it.
Motion by Feldheim.
Second.
Second by Gage. Anyone here to speak to this ordinance? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Brings us to the highlight of the day, Dirk Rogers, Highway Superintendent.
Slow day today.
Very slow day today.
Yeah. I'll start with a little discussion about the snow and ice event that we had the last couple days. And I talked to 2 of you, and, you know, I didn't figure I'd bother the other 3 because you're gonna tell me the same thing. Just a couple things. First off, I'm not opposed to changing how we do things. But supply-wise and equipment-wise, we aren't set up to address continual application going down the road. I mean, and we are so not, that isn't even something, like I said, we can head in that direction, but, and I'm not gonna whine about the cost. If we're not gonna spend any more money this year, but it's gonna be like property taxes. If we're spending more over here, then we got less over here, is all I'm saying. But, you know, the other thing is, it's gonna suck again today probably at some spots, because the temperature hasn't gotten up. And then tomorrow, the temp's coming up. We had this happen, this is the 3rd one that stands out with me, you know. 3 years ago, we had an inch of rain on Christmas. Remember that one?
Yep.
Now, the thing with that is that's thick enough that you can go out with serrated cutting edges on your blades. I mean, there are things you can do when it's that thick to try to make it better. And we do have some cutting edges where you can switch, so you kind of have a thing with that. You can put the blades out and run around. The fact of the matter is, we have seven sanders altogether, and 3 of them are small that are in the outside shops, you know, and we've always targeted hills and intersections, and we probably did, we went beyond that later in the day out on the Richmond Road. But the thing is, I know...
Richmond Road.
Oh, geez, that's my very next statement. My very next statement.
A little impatient.
Yes, he is. Because we already milled yours up and it's gravel, we don't have to worry.
I got good, I didn't worry about it.
Yeah. But,
Thank you. All kinds of good stuff.
But, yeah. All kinds of extra stuff in your road, remember? But we did a little more out there, and we did a little more going to Warner. And I'm comfortable with making those arguments because of the traffic counts on there. But the reality of that is, just for a little perspective, what the state has switched how they do this. They use brine, they use a lot of sensor equipment, they use a lot of stuff's computerized. It basically tells you what you're supposed to put down. I don't know that we want to get there, but
I think we should put up cameras.
anyway,
We had a good one at the South Dump Site.
yeah, there you go. No, but the amount of sand, before they switch though, the amount of salt and sand that the Aberdeen area, I'm not even talking Ipswich and all them other little shops, but the guys that came out of here, one pass, was in an average year the same amount we use in a year for the whole season. So that's what I'm saying. This isn't kind of like, well, we just have to like add another 30% to something. This is a complete switch and have to procure a lot more materials. So we had that one with the rain on New Year's, and then there was a few years ago, and I can't remember first tenure, second tenure, it all has just sort of run together now, but we had one that was like that, and then the temp went down for like 2 weeks, and we barely sniffed above zero, much less getting anything thawed out. And we had a similar conversation to this, but that one was actually a couple of weeks before, when you're looking at the temperatures and you're going, it's gonna be a while before we get back up there. Tomorrow, I'm guessing everything will be back to adequate.
Well, it's like anything else that you plan for. You can have a policy that says, okay, under most predictable circumstances, and sometimes we have an event, that's county-wide, but more often than that, we don't. Your conversation and some of the localized things that happen, the flooding that we had at Elm Lake, for instance, a year and a half ago, was basically 1 square mile that just got dumped on. You go 2 miles anyway around it, it's like mud type of thing. I recall seeing someone that was coming from Ipswich yesterday that said the roads from Ipswich to Aberdeen are great until you get 1 mile outside Aberdeen and then off you go. So a lot of that stuff's very localized. So I don't know that we have to change policy in order to react to individual situations that may be localized in some of these, but I think it's ripe for conversation. But, when we get reports or we become aware of something, that's kind of a critical nature that's localized. So we're not saying we don't care about everybody else.
No,
but we do respond, or we attempt to respond within reason when there's a situation that, we should be.
Yep.
Have you got enough material left for another event just like this?
Yeah, we're okay. At the end of the day, even with what we ended up doing, yesterday what we sanded would be, I would call normal, or a little bit beyond normal. But we're out doing it again today, and I know what we had mixed, we were running out of mix, so we got to make some more. But I've told you this before, our salt comes outside of the normal supply chain, so we don't get affected when there's salt shortages, because ours is a backhaul for L&O. They just bring it back from Kansas with them, and it works great. One more comment to you, Mike, on that. I agree with what you're saying, and we should come up with, make sure we have our bases covered so we have that flexibility in specific areas. Now, yesterday was it was a pretty widespread area, because if you went down 6 and went out on 12W to Mina, about the last 2 miles were pretty good, but everything else. So, and again, it's back. You should have heard people when I was explaining this to them yesterday, and I understand why people don't get it, but unfortunately, the liability thing of once you do something, especially with snow removal, you have to be able to explain either why you're going to do it again or not do it again. And I know a lot of people were looking at the city on this last snow event going, the city didn't come out, Well, wherever they measure their 2 inches for when the snow emergency kicks in, they aren't going to go out till wherever that location is hits 2 inches, and that's basically what happened. And it looked like it went on a long time, but when you added it all up, but they're not going to deviate from their policy. So where I'm kind of headed with that, we have to be careful, because pretty soon the general public's perspective is going to be that, now the county's going to sand this thing, and I'll be able to run in and, and Spink County, again, I'll tell you that, they don't own a sander, never have had a sander, they've never sanded, and if somebody slides, I'm not saying this is great or ideal, but if somebody slides through an intersection in Spink County, they're not liable, because there should be no expectation that it's sanded. And as back-asswards as that sounds, that's kind of a thing that we have to keep in mind with that.
Sure.
Well, ideally, the ultimate responsibility is the operator, because you're overdriving conditions.
Right.
And most people don't, understand that, whatever the conditions have to be, whether it's, safe to go 2 miles an hour or 20 miles an hour or whatever.
Right. And I drove, it was funny, because we just had driven, like, when you called me, and then another, I had an agree to disagree conversation for 10 minutes with a lady yesterday that was, I was like, wow, I finally found somebody. It's so hard to find somebody to have a conversation where you might not 100% agree, but it doesn't turn into
An argument, yeah.
swearing and hanging up, and so, anyway,
I'm basically doing the high-risk areas, intersections.
yeah, we'll do hills and both our hills in the county, but we do the hills and
Intersections.
the intersections and a few of those spots.
There's a couple.
So, I do think that, and I visited with Kendall how we dispatch those could be a little better targeted. For instance, I mean, kind of sounds like a no-brainer, but hit everything on the north side of town where the traffic is, and then fan them out and hit Warner and that, so. That's my bit about that. I mean, those are some things there, and, if we wanted to switch to brine, we can do it. There's better ways to do it, but, I mean, the same thing I say when...
Well, then you get into conditions.
Yep.
How cold is it, how cold is it gonna get, how cold is it gonna stay, what do you
How
apply
long,
to it and
and-
stuff, and, I recall I spent a fair amount of time in Fargo a couple of winters, and, they've kind of gone to just, we're doing nothing up here, because they'd do something, and it would be the wrong thing. It would take snow and turn it to ice,
Yes.
and turn it to slick, when they've been better off leaving it alone, trying to use the science, but get caught with the temperatures going in a different direction than what they anticipated, and they actually make the situation worse rather than better. So.
That's why you'll see us be a little sluggish on a windy day when there's a little bit of snow blowing around. You gotta think about even doing those intersections, because all you're doing, you can just complete Zamboni situation. You
Yeah.
get her melted and shoot some snow on there and get her back down, and
Mhm, yeah, then we get a real skating rink.
And another thing that you're mentioning, or that this kind of covers, and then we're talking about the Richmond Road, trees.
Yep, shelter belts.
And it's not even, it always used to be the trees catch the snow or hold the snow or do something with the snow, Actually, I wish they'd outlaw soybeans. I'm gonna go to hell, because of how the snow comes off the field is just nuts. But having said that, whoever's involved in planning and zoning these days from the commission, we really gotta scrutinize the tree thing. Now, I get it, because I think if you go 100% by what the ordinance says, you can't even have a tree 150 feet from the right-of-way.
Mhm,
So you gotta have to
period.
have these big giant lots like you guys have out in the country in order to have your house back far enough to have any trees in front, blah, blah, blah.
Unless you're on Richmond Road.
We all inherited that, let's just move on. But my point is, that kinda gets lost, is those trees on the south side of the road in the winter, the sun doesn't have an opportunity to hit the road. And it was funny, 'cause we left 13, went down 6, and then went out on 12W, and when you got out there where the sun had just had a little opportunity to just warm it up a little bit, it takes care of it. So, I get it, because our tree ordinance is goofy, and any ordinance that they have to get a variance for 90% of the time to be, to do what they wanna do, needs to be reviewed anyway, I get that. But that is one thing, that goddamn trees on the south side, all through the county, you don't get any heat on your road, so. We'll call that the department update. Outside of that, we're sanding again, we're gonna run around and sand again, and hopefully it's gonna be warm the next couple days, so we're gonna go back to hauling gravel.
Sounds good.
That's about all we got going on there. I'm gonna do a little visit about equipment here. I have two things, and Kathy, I don't know if on the agenda is, I have a list of surplus stuff. If it can't be done today, I'll just...
Nope, it can. We have equipment surplus,
Okay.
so we can approve your list, and if you want to are you ready to set a date for your sale or not yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
I wanted to get this stuff surplus, and then, I'll come, this all goes together, but no, I'm not ready to set a date. I gotta call Val Jark again and make sure that we're coordinating with what their stuff is. First thing I wanna ask is recommend that we buy a lowboy off a Sourcewell. It's, It's identical to the one we bought 20 years ago. Well, identical, I hope not. It's the same.
Same capability.
It's the same make and model, just 20-year update. And then we're going to utilize our Stinger spread axle that came with the old one. We haven't used it as a string, it's got a spreader bar and then you got your rear axle, and depending on what you need for length to bridge something, you can have the spreader bar or not have it. We've taken it out and just have a quad, just have 4-axle trailers, how we've been running the one we have now. We have to change the tire size because the tire size isn't the same, but we'll be able to utilize the one that we have, because it's like another $19,000 for that additional axle and Stinger. So I think we can use, I know we can use the one we have. So the new one is $94,951.22. I think it's in town now. And
You had that in your budget for this year?
Yep. I gotta look at that before. None of this is gonna increase the budget. I have to look exactly at what my equipment line was, because we have moved a few things because of the availability situation. So some of the stuff that comes available, because we're gonna be a couple years out. Now, trucks, we're okay. I think we can wait a couple of years, which gets us a little bit out of the, trying to cycle them through, but I think we'll be okay there. And blades were okay, because we bought a couple here before things got wacky. And we've got that loader bid on February 1st to pay off the used loader that we've got. And then our loader situation should be good. We have those 2 old side dumps. They're 20 years old. Same story, getting your hands on new ones right now. So we're sent one up to Crawford's to have some repairs done up at the farm. They're gonna fix it. And we're gonna take the other one down to the Trail King factory. Matter of fact, it's already down there. And it's just gonna get complete frame-off restoration for about 40 grand. New one's about 70, but we can't get one. So we're just gonna fix that. See how many more years we can squeeze out of those 2. So that's a little bit about the trailers. So this low boy, I would like to recommend buying it. And I got the packet here for you, Kathy. I guess that's all I got regarding that.
Something we need to bid, or?
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
right.
Oh, it's on the source.
We're
well.
buying it off.
Okay.
Sourcewell, it's already been
Okay.
bid through Sourcewell, and then we're surplusing part B/2 sub C of the conversation. I'll talk about surplusing the one we have right now.
I'll move it. Motion by Fiker, second by Weiss to approve the purchase of the lowboy.
Anything in there that's...
Any further discussion?
Missing any.
Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Well, I have 3 of you tractor experts in the room. That is the one other item that we get by, and we purchased one from the state that was surplus for 30. These are mower tractors, I'm sorry, I'm talking about small, 100, 150 horse mower tractors. The past 8 years, whatever, since I've been back this time, we got a surplus one from the airport that was a little too small, but it works. And we bought a surplus one from the airport, I think was like 25, and we bought a $30,000 New Holland, had like 3,000 hours on it, that we got from the state for like 30, I think that one was. And those are the last, and we bought one for 49, that was a new John Deere, but it was the largest, you guys might know this better than me, because I learned this one time, that John Deere has, they're basically turf machines up to this point. And they have different tires and different objectives with those tractors, more like the biggest thing you'd see on a golf course or something like that. And then they start with their full-blown green, really expensive egg tractors from there. And we purchased the largest of those turf machines, which was enough horsepower and stuff, but it operates a little bit differently. And that one was 49. So these are things that we've cycled through. When we're mowing out, you want to have like 5 or 6. to get it done in a couple of months. Those are the ones that we've purchased recently, and
Because we've had to go to purchasing them. We used to get them, didn't we?
yeah, and that isn't completely, we used to get them for like $5 a year, and that isn't completely off the table yet, but
We
we gotta
discovered the
find
best thing
it.
to do is put our own tires on when we get them, and then take their
And then
own
take
tires
them back.
off and put the new ones on and give them back, and
Right.
they're fine, yeah,
Yep.
I remember.
and your per hour cost on
I haven't
it.
forgotten everything.
I remember that same thing.
Yeah, so, and that, some places are getting that. Now, it isn't as wide open as here, everybody
Right.
come get a tractor it used to be. You have to find, because there's some implement dealers
They don't
that
have
must
them
be
lined
hooked.
up in a warehouse someplace.
Exactly, some guys are connected better than other guys, and so that isn't off the table
Yeah,
yet.
Ted's retired, so. that's-
Yeah. We had a whole cottage industry hauling tractors. So I was looking at a replacement, the state had, RDO has the ones that the state had last year, which, you know, we're like, wow, those are perfect, and they're big enough for snow blowers, 155 horse, and they're 190,000 a piece, and I can't do it. So I'm kinda starting this, I am looking at other options for new stuff, just to see, and the reason that I'm partial to John Deere, and I know not everyone in the room is a Green fan, but, is we have this one,
They have the best seats, though.
well,
That's right, you missed that.
they have like 12 and 15,000 hours on them.
Mhm.
And being a dumb city kid, I guess I just look at something that we've had that long and it hasn't been too bad, and you put that many, you know, same thing with these Trail King trailers. I mean, it's really hard to move off of something until the price is $190,000 for a mower tractor. So, there is oh gosh, it's, what the heck is Challenger now? Massey Ferguson. It's Butler's Challenger, Agco, whatever. That's evolved into a Massey Ferguson now. Edmonds County just got one, which I was like, are they gonna plant a few sections with it? That thing's huge, like 200 horse, I don't know, but that's what they wanted. And that one's like 155. So we looked at a little smaller one, and we're down around about 130 with one of those, which, you know, when the last three we bought combined were 100.
Yeah.
So, I'm sort of priming the pump to see if that's sort of the, I don't wanna say last ditch effort. These are mower tractors, these aren't fire engines and ambulances, right? It's not, oh my God, we gotta close the county if we don't get one, but, if I can't find a suitable replacement, we may have to consider purchasing one at, you know, but.
Takes it to a different stage, and if it's reliable and it's productive.
Right. It's just, gosh, that stuff, and I know it's cliche as hell, oh, prices, and they're not what they used to be and all that, but, my goodness.
Showing your age, put your
I
glasses.
know I have, put on my glasses and get my Just for Men in and turn up my hearing aid, let's go. All right, here's a list of equipment that we want to surplus, and if you got questions about this stuff, we can certainly run through it quick.
Is there 130,000 there?
Might be, might be.
Who shows up?
You can use, I think this would have everything you need on it. It's got the
If we
model.
move a couple pieces around at the auction, so they weren't quite sure what it was.
That we use like in
Oh,
Beware,
yeah.
and then it's the ones that have county decals on them, they're
Okay.
decals. So having John around has been very helpful, because if I did that, it would be on a bar napkin probably.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'd like to be emailed, I guess, I'll talk to you.
Oh, you want
Yeah.
that
because-
emailed to you?
Yeah,
Oh,
so we
no
don't have to
problem.
retype it, yeah.
No problem. Dennis is gonna look for some deals. Yeah.
You got anything with a grapple fork on it?
Actually, yeah.
So,
I think
there
we're
you
gonna,
go.
Kendall just remembered that, I think we're gonna keep it though.
Oh,
That first thing's a low boy we're talking about. So what I'm gonna do with that first is figure out what it's worth. And I am gonna send a note out to all the other counties first, before, once we surplus it, then I'm just gonna tell them, I'm gonna figure out kinda what it's worth, and I'm gonna send it out to all the counties and say, hey, we got this low boy, because a lot of them, I've seen some of the stuff they use, and then some of them could use it maybe, fix it up a little bit and use it. I just wanna give them an opportunity, if somebody will pay us enough, you know, close enough to what it's worth, as opposed to going through the process and putting it on an auction. I guess you probably know from the township stuff, Mike, we can you can switch, like, we can sell stuff to other counties and buy stuff from other counties without, as long as it's surplus, without, the bid limit being a consideration. So, but, and if we don't get enough interest, then we'll just put it on Purple Wave. The second thing's that New Holland wheel loader, 13,000 hours on it. I don't know if you've seen it, the high range is out of it. It works okay, but it's got low range, and, it's got a scale on it, so it might have a little bit of value. The high-pack vibratory roller, that's a pad foot with the, you know, the knobbies on the wheel. We gotta get a bigger one. It's just too small when we're milling, so we'll just sell it and probably rent one here and there. And that's another thing where I was like, oh, we'll just get another one for under $50,000, and I was like, oh, yeah.
2 years ago, maybe.
The one we got's like under 50,000, so that's probably something. We use that mostly behind the zipper when we mill stuff up. You need that to kind of crush the stuff up behind it. Ferguson 9-wheel roller, we bought that from Brookings County surplus in 2003. We bought that. They were done with it, and we've used it another 18 years, and now we're gonna surplus it. That's something, things like that, vibratory roller and that 9-wheel, those are readily available to rent. So I'm not in a rush to buy one. If we stumble into one sometime, that's reasonably priced, but that's something we can get those pretty easy to rent for all the more chip sealing we're gonna do.
Sure.
Those trailers are just beat to hell, and we updated the 12-foot ones with some 16-foot ones a couple years ago, that utility trailer and that little tilt trailer. The 4-inch water pump's kind of superfluous after, let's see, was it 2011? I think we got some grants to get some newer, nicer water pumps that we kind of share with the other departments that Mike's helped hook us up with. So we don't really need that 4-inch one anymore. That 08 Chevy pickup might work for somebody. It's the crankshaft's going out of it, and it's got probably 250,000 on it. So made an executive decision to actually park it, so whoever buys it can actually drive it away from the sale instead of running it until it throws the shaft, and then we just got another big old paperweight sitting there. So that one does run, but it will need love long term. The next one's a tonner, that Chevy pickup, the 1990, that was federal surplus. We bought that in 96. I don't know, I went back and looked, it's been here forever. It's had 167,000 miles on it for 4 years. And then I went and looked and figured out that the odometer wasn't hooked up. But it runs okay, but it's just an extra. We've updated some of the, like the bridge 1-ton truck got updated a couple years ago, so then the old one kind of worked its way down, and this is sort of the one that falls out the bottom. But it's a 1990, and it was a federal surplus when we got it, so. 2 more tractors I was talking about. They're 6400s, so they're not bad. They have the front wheel assist on them, and he didn't put I don't think I have the hours in there, but one's like 11 and I think one's 10. Russ bought both of those, so they're actually used when we got them. Then the one mower's hooked on the tractor, so we'll just leave it on there, sell it with it. Those run off of hydraulics, and we're gonna switch everything to being straight PTO. And use gang mowers now. We won't have these side decks anymore. We use gang mowers, and you can get a plug to put on your other half of the gang mower. So you just either you'll be able to completely remove that and detach the stuff easily, so you just got your one side, or there's a kit that you just slap a plug on there to cover it up. Gang mowers, lifespan of a gang mower at the county's not real good. They just get the crap beat out of them.
Culverts raise hell with them.
They do. That old riding mower, that's just the one we had at the shop. I think it runs, but that's about it. It's just an old Cub Cadet. Couple of snow plows we've updated the last couple of years. And the last thing on there was off that 2011 Volvo that we surplused a couple of years ago, but the guy was overweight if he threw it up on his trailer when he came to get the blade, so he just said the hell with it and left it here, so we'll resell it. And there's a couple of rims there. So that's sort of the story with that stuff. Do you have any questions about it or anything with hinky to you or anything?
Nope, looks good to me.
When you surplus these two 6400s, what have you got left there for more tractors?
We got,
Isn't there a 7810 or something?
we got
or
a 7210, that's about the same, it might be a year or two newer than them. And then we have a newer 7410, but that's not mechanical, that's a little bigger. I wanna say that's like a 135 horse, it's a little bigger, or 150 horse, it's a little bigger than those, but it does not have, front assist. I don't know why, I bought that one. I'm sure at the time I had a reason, but whatever, it was probably a little cheaper, that's what I'll use. It was a little cheaper. And then,
Let me get it.
7410, yeah. And then since the 7410, which we bought brand new, we've got those three that I mentioned. We got the surplus one from the airport, we got the blue New Holland one from the state, which you've all seen them, they're the same blue ones they've always had out. And then we got, that new John Deere, I don't know, it's a turf machine, that's all I know. It's weird, when you go, it's one of those deals that you go to find tires for it,
Yeah.
you end up over in a whole different area, but, so
Look
that's
at your buddy and go, you got what?
Yeah. So that's kinda what, okay, I mean, we're not dead in the water by any means, but the thing with some of those, you know, we're running them, that's, like these that we're getting rid of, that'll help, because then you're not running a 15 and 12,000 hour, you know.
Now, like those Massey Fergusons you're talking about, do they have a front PTO on them?
Yep.
They do have.
So we can put a
snow blower.
You put a snow blower on.
Three-point in the front PTO.
Yep. Yepper. So I would recommend that we surplus this stuff, and I don't know, I'll email you this list so you don't have to retype it. And I guess I don't know, I'm standing up.
Entertain a motion to
I would
approve
move
the
the surplus to the equipment reserves brought forward.
Second.
We have a motion by Feldheim, a second by Gage. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Anything else that you guys have?
Sounds good. Good explanation on the salting and sanding.
Yeah. But, you know, always call. There's usually a reason. I know people don't always understand. And I know, like, new Commissioner Mike doesn't know me as well as the rest of y'all, but there's almost always a reason. I'm not always gonna say it's a great reason, or that it's, you know, the decision matrix to get to that answer was perfect, but it's not. I'm not bitter, I'm not anything. There's usually a reason, and we're gonna do it this way. And there's a few things I talked about with Kendall about how we approached yesterday that I thought we could improve on, so, but, I don't know, winter in South Dakota.
Yep, every
Slow
event's
down.
just a little bit different and
Yeah, it is.
a little more or less widespread, so you have to just
Every
kind of
event's
handle each
different.
one. Yep,
Big county.
exactly. Too many
Thanks,
miles
Eric.
of blacktop.
Thank you. If we were Rhode Island, this would be way easier.
Thanks, Rick. All right, that brings us to the end of our scheduled agenda. Kathy?
We have approved the general meeting minutes of January 18th.
Motion by Weiss,
Second.
second by Fikert. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Claims.
Move. Second.
Motion by Feldheim, second by Weiss. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
HR report.
Move.
Motion by Weiss,
Second.
second by Gage. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Set hearing and authorized advertising for the zoning and rezone ordinances.
Move.
Motion by Fikert,
Second.
second by Weiss. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Plat.
Move.
Motion by Weiss,
Second.
second by Feldheim. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
I'll have approaches on them. Thank you.
Auditor's report of accounts.
Move. Second.
Motion by Feldheim, second by Weiss. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Claim assignments.
Move.
Motion by Weiss,
Second.
second by Gage. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Leases.
Move. Second.
Motion by Feldheim, second by Weiss. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Lobbyist contract.
Can we have a discussion about that?
Absolutely.
what, we're 2 weeks into the legislative session, and we already pay dues to the South Dakota Association of County Commissioners, South Dakota Association of County Officials. I'm sure we're paying dues to the State's Attorneys Association and to the Sheriff's Association. I mean, and then the worst part of it is it's open-ended. If you read the contract, they're going to pay them $3,000 to start, and then
up to actual expenses.
and then open it up,
If-
so you can pay $1,500 per event for anything that comes afterwards.
Only with
I mean, we can't
only
give
with
our
pre-approval.
employees, let me talk.
Okay.
And then we can't pay our employees a decent salary, but we can keep hiring people and keep putting them on, keep sending them. I mean, when is it gonna stop? I just, upset me, that's all I can say. And I can't support it. I mean, we're 2 weeks into the session, we already pay all kinds of money. The South Dakota Association of County Commissioners, they hire lobbyists. I don't get it. And then we never talked about it. All of a sudden, it shows up on the agenda. Why didn't we have a conversation about it in the commission chambers before it just shows up? I don't.
We did have a conversation last week, I know you were gone.
Okay.
We did have a conversation, I'll turn it over to Commissioner Weiss. Commissioner Weiss had a conversation with Mrs. Johnson, and I'll let him explain.
Yeah, at the beginning, and I agree with your sentiment completely. We had that was part of the conversation. We belong to those organizations, and they have lobbyists, and they represent the organizations and the groups as a whole, but they don't represent Brown County. And we have situations, needs unique enough, and, it's a competitive situation. I don't necessarily like it. You've been there, Commissioner Sutton's been there, as representatives. Things happen fairly quickly. We're big enough that we need to start playing with some of the rest of these people, because cities like Sioux Falls, Brookings, Rapid City, I'm not quite sure about Watertown and Mitchell, but they have their own people there that on a very limited basis, which we're talking about, very limited basis, because these people represent multiple entities, represent their interests and their interests only when they're having those conversations, and right now, we don't have anybody there for that, so.
We should have talked about it 2 weeks ago, a month ago, not when the session's half over.
Right. Well, it became very obvious to me because I was in Pierre first week for a day on water issues, and it once again became very obvious to me because I don't like spending a lot of time in Pierre during session. It aggravates me. But rekindled a lot of connections with legislators and other folks out there and stuff. It's important to have somebody there who properly represents your interests. So it doesn't give me heartburn either way. It's a suggestion that I think is something we should seriously consider, and whichever way it goes, I don't have a lot of heartburn with, but I think it's an opportunity that we should probably consider taking advantage of.
And I too agree with what you're saying, Dennis, and after you and I having been there, legislators who represent our district, don't have the time or the ability to be able to track any and all legislation that could impact Brown County particularly. There's a couple of things going on right now, especially with all the surplus money that the state has, that towns or communities or counties are specifically going after funding, and I think we need to be aware and stay on top of that so that we can be included. If they're asking for money for projects that we have similar needs for, we need to have someone there to speak on our behalf and say, me too, whatever, because that is the type of legislation that's taking place this year. And I think Julie could very, very adequately represent us, where the state association really wouldn't have a dog in that fight per se.
So what we're saying is if we don't pay her $3,000 and then whatever other thing might come up, that she isn't gonna lobby for Brown County? I mean, she's already getting paid to be down there as a lobbyist, obviously by somebody. Why do we have to add to it? I mean, to me, it should be a responsibility. I mean, I just can't, and all you gotta do is talk to, whether, I don't even know if it's Lauren Pankratz now or who it is that's lobbying for the Association of County Commissioners, but have a conversation with him. I mean, have him talk to I spent 8 years down there. I saw what went on, And we just don't need to pay another $3,000. And then next year it'll be $5,000 or $10,000, and then it don't stop, and you can't, the county doesn't have enough money to give decent raises to the employees, and we hire somebody, we pay them more than what the people are already here getting. I mean, it's out of control.
Well, the way it was explained to me, Dennis, and correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner Weiss, but Julie agreed to represent us on a few of the critical issues that are unique to Brown County. Keep an eye on them, and she's already there, you're absolutely right, she's already there, representing other entities and other organizations. So she would only bill us for the time spent on specific Brown County issues. And we last week decided we didn't want to leave it open-ended, and that's why we put in there up to $3,000. It very easily could be half or even less than that, depending on how much time she actually puts in. And the other paragraph was added in the event that the issue that she's working on us would happen to go to a summer study. That would at least give her the ability to represent us at any summer study committee hearings and being reimbursed for her time and expense.
But technically, according to the rules, she's not supposed to lobby on our behalf unless she's a registered lobbyist for
Right.
us. So,
She would have to be authorized to lobby specifically for Brown County.
Well, then she was doing things wrong when we were out.
well, it's a fine line that you walk with that, but this would, officially give her that position. And it's a unique opportunity, and quite frankly, I'm not real happy about the whole thing, with all the federal money that's floating around and the rest of it, but the fact is that it's there. There's an awful lot of competition for it, and there's needs that we have that are not being met because of the tax base and the situation. It's, we've been put on with the cab and some other things without being able to use the resources that we have, given the responsibility to do that. And so I don't know that this is going to be an ongoing situation. I think it's a rather unique one, but
how come some of this doesn't fall on the representatives from the districts in Brown County? I mean, they're supposed to be working for the people of Brown County,
Well,
right?
exactly, and you did, and I did, I tried to do research to find out those things and follow those committees and try to get in and sign up to comment on those things, absolutely. I mean, there's no question. And lobbyists, yes, absolutely. Lobbyists connect with the legislators, and they connect with our legislators as well, but at the same time, we can all talk to those legislators too. And so we, on the weekends or at the Cracker Barrels or whatever, so if we want to have an influence as individuals or commissioners, we can have those influences. We already pay dues to, 5, 6 organizations that represent the county in all various different ways, and this particular thing is hooked directly to the jail. There's no question about it. You gotta, who's kidding who? Anyway.
well,
The question I would have is, okay, she represents Brown County. What happens if she ends up with a conflict, if she represents something we want, but they want it too? What does she do in a case like that? Because she's represented multiple entities, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm.
I often wondered if, how a lobbyist that isn't actually designated to one entity, like, we have certain ones, she's going to be, who's she representing, I guess, is if we get in one of these deals where something needs to be Brown County and she also represents the other side of it. What happens at that point?
And I think that happens more often than you realize in Pierre with some of the more well-known lobbyists. Dean Krogman represents a laundry list of organizations, and I know for a fact that there are going to be times when he's going to represent one group who's opposed to an idea or a bill that another group he represents is for. So, they just need to recuse themselves, not speak to that or whatever. I don't know how they handle it, but I know that happens on more than one occasion.
have a conversation with their clients and
Right.
make sure, knowing what I do know about the portfolio of folks that she's representing. There's several different interests. I don't see that any of them are diametrically opposed, but, they're all looking out for their own interests, and that's, part and parcel of what you're supposed to be doing, and that's kind of what we're talking about here. The issue, and I appreciate your question, the stark reality, and you two have both been there, is that when you're a legislator, you wind up with committee assignments, and there's anywhere from 3 to close to 500 bills floating through that you gotta deal with in that short period of time. And so when you're in your subcommittees, you're working on, you know, the things that are coming before you from all over the place on a variety of different things, and then you're behind the scenes trying to stay on top of, you know, things that actually impact the folks that you're there to represent. And so, you know, you're trying to do as much keep up with things as much as, you know, trying to champion something, you know, that's unique. And the window of opportunity is fairly narrow, and you guys, you know, have leaned and continue to have to lean on people that represent those special interests to give you the background, because you can do all the research that you want, but, you know, getting them the details of, you know, everything that's involved sometimes is pretty difficult when you're researching those things. And, you know, I guess I don't recall, you know, which committees, you know, both of you were on for the years that you were there, but you wanted to get pretty, you know, deeply immersed in those issues. And many times they've got nothing, you know, very little to do with your own constituents at home, but that's what you sign up for when you're there, you know, whether it's appropriations or education or health and wellness or, you know, local government, you know, those kinds of things, you know, lots of other things.
It doesn't state anything in the agreement that she will give us a report back of who she represented, what she was representing. I'd like to see something that, I mean, what did she do down there instead of just bill us for $3,000? Is there some way to make sure she follows through with that report, that we can see what she's lobbying for?
Yeah, and it's actual expenses up to, so, you know, if she winds up not participating in any conversations that qualify, then there, you know, shouldn't be any expense, but I don't know.
On the county commissioner side, Eric Erickson is our current lobbyist.
Okay.
And on the official side, Roger Tellinghusen is their official lobbyist, but they work hand in hand and work, you know, in harmony with each other. And we do have a weekly board call if anyone would want to join in. At 1:30 on Wednesday afternoons, we will be having a weekly call to bring us up to speed on legislation. But they're expecting a record number of bills to be introduced this year, number one. Number two, we know the bills that we're aware of currently. But as you know, Dennis, any county or any individual or any other entity can introduce a bill at any time. And that's kind of the reason to have Julie there, is to be aware if there is a bill that's introduced, because I think there's going to be several bills dealing with the legalized marijuana, whether it be legalized or medical, and a lot of those bills could have an impact on revenue back to the states that we haven't even seen yet. So it's those kind of bills that I think we want an extra set of eyes watching out for, in my opinion.
Well, and you know, in the 8 years that I spent out there, I can remember on many occasions going into other committee hearings following, and one in particular that comes to mind is appropriations, going into appropriations for, and lobbying. And I mean, I was never on appropriations, but you follow the bills that, when you're in the legislature, you follow the bills that affect the area that you're representing. And if one comes up a bill comes up, well, Northern, I mean, there were a lot of bills came up through appropriations for Northern, and the legislators from the local area would follow that. You didn't have to have somebody, I mean, that maybe puts a little extra work on the legislators, but if you want to do the work, you can do it. You can get the information. You can build the relationships with the other legislators and get that information. So I just, basically two major things. One is that here we are 2 weeks, 3 weeks into the legislative session. We already pay membership dues to half a dozen organizations. I just think it's, you know, it's foolish to spend the money that we never budgeted for it. Just all of a sudden it drops out of the air. Do what you have to do.
If there were some changes to the proposed contract, the draft contract, would you suggest any changes that would make it more palatable, or is it just a flat, you're not in favor of doing it at all?
I'm not in favor of it.
Okay. I just wanted to give you the opportunity to make some revisions to the proposed contract. Other thoughts? put it on the agenda today to approve so that we could get Julie the go-ahead if we are in agreement that we want to hire her. And if not, we'll let her know that it wasn't approved.
Yeah, so to reiterate, in order to represent us, and, you know, she would have to be registered with the state, which is a very simple process, but as a body, we would have to approve that.
Authorize that, correct.
That she do that, and she's agreed to do that for actual expenses. As you said, she's already there, so expenses would be minimal. She knows the issue, she knows the people there and so forth, about what some of the possibilities are, and if we miss opportunities so that others are able to take advantage of, you know.
So her being registered to be a lobbyist for us, is that something that isn't gonna take 3 weeks if the state's doing it? Because is it immediate? Because at that point, if it takes long to file that, I mean.
No, it's immediate, she would just.
We go on the
directly
website,
to
it takes all about 3
secretary.
minutes.
Okay, that's what I was
Yeah.
just questioning, if there's a lag from. No?
She would be registered, I mean, as soon as we gave the approval, she would be
Okay,
registered
good
this
question.
afternoon
Yeah.
by
Yeah, we can
Secretary of
email it
State.
to them.
Go on the website, and it takes all of about 3 minutes.
I did have a procedural question. If she had questions or wanted to get the county's opinion on a piece of legislation, who here would she talk to? Because you all kind of have different opinions.
Well, Mike's on the legislative.
Would it be who we appointed to that board book?
Contact, and then me.
I don't know if you want me on there for that one, though. I'm not a huge fan of paying people to ask somebody else to do their job. And that's pretty much what you do with lobbyists. I think you should follow the representatives to do their job.
The thing is, I'm not taking an opinion on a lobbyist contract, but the representatives don't always agree with the county's position. So they might be against something we are for.
Well, if they're there to represent the majority of people that elected them, I mean, then their opinions would represent the majority of the people. I mean, that, like, individuals might disagree, right? I mean, that's how you get elected.
Like, when I go to
So-
peer for auditor stuff, there's oftentimes, like, legislators who are not necessarily in favor of the group of county auditors, so you have to find that balance with your lobbyists.
And as we well know, the legislature in general is not in favor of nearly anything that the county's proposed regarding funding. We've learned that over the years, so.
But I mean, I think Commissioner Feldheim hits right on, hits dead head on. You're never gonna get every lobbyist to agree on every situation. That's what the committee hearings are for, is so that you can get both sides of it. And that's, to me, it's in this particular situation, it truly is the legislator's position to get the information that they can get. There's other, I mean, you wanna go to lobbyists, there's like 375 lobbyists that represent like 650, 700 different organizations. I mean, they don't, and they run head on, just like the chairman said, they run head on some of those companies that they represent too. One will say, no, we're in favor, the next one don't. Well, there he sits, there the lobbyist sits. Oh, no,
Give me 1 second here.
not necessarily a waste of money, it's just, the county's got other issues that this isn't gonna help the county move forward with what's going on. Spend more money when we could be giving it to raises to our employees, because it won't stop here. Next year, it's not gonna be 3,000, it's gonna be 5, and then the next year it'll be 10, and then it'll be 25, and
I don't know that that's accurate, because we have control of that, and I'm not advocating for that by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, we have a draft agreement before us. We need to take some kind of action on.
Well, let me ask this question, and this is a serious question. Right now, in the submitted bills before the legislators, HB 1101, which is asking for a $10 million appropriation to build a regional jail near Deadwood in Lawrence County and declare an emergency, brought by Representatives Fitzgerald and Hoffman and Senator Johns, Prime, and Wilk. And the jail is something that we have statutory requirements that we provide, and we have needs that we're not able to fill on our own the way it is right now. And I have the ear of some of our legislators, sometimes more than others, and question to me, and it's not my decision to make, would you like to see a similar bill on behalf of Brown County?
Either a similar bill or piggyback on that bill and
Right.
and, insert our own.
And if so, who's going to champion that? So it's not just reacting to other legislation, it's a question of initiating request legislation, strategizing and championing that in order to give it an actual opportunity to succeed, as opposed to throwing it out there and going, sink or swim on your own.
Well, the first thing we need to do is contact our area legislators who are directly impacted, because they're the only ones that can have and offer an amendment in committee when that bill is heard. So we either, Julie can work with our legislators to help draft an amendment to include us.
Or a separate bill,
or we-
a companion or
right.
similar bill,
Or we need to work with our legislators, but that's gonna mean
or something altogether different.
us getting a hold of them and talking to them at Cracker Barrel this Saturday or whatever, so.
You know, another thing that would help me in this deal is probably if we had that report that we paid $15,000 for to find out where we're at with our move towards jail 2. We've got nothing. We haven't heard a thing. Where's it at?
We did ask Deputy Lunsman last week to reach out to them, put pressure on them that we seriously need that report. I mean, we, in good faith, contracted with them to put that report together and get back to us, and
I would think that if you're gonna go down the pier, that you better have your guns loaded, because you're not gonna make much progress if it's just like driving a nail in the coffin of the bill that Deadwood has got to tie an amendment on. I mean, it's just like poof, throwing it in the air. I mean, you're not gonna you'll make no progress whatsoever. In other words, instead of asking for 10 or 20 million, you ask for 20 or 40 million. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I don't know
I've
that
seen
we
it
tie
happen.
onto theirs, but, you know, it provides the opportunity for the conversation. And, no, I agree, I wanna see that report, I'm a little more than a little frustrated we don't have it already.
Do you actually think the state's gonna allow that? Because if they allow that one, they allow Brown, what's to keep every county wanting more and more jails? You think the state's got extra money now, but in 2 years, and all of a sudden,
Right.
5 counties got their jail built, and the other 5 counties that want a jail, the state's broke. I just see all sorts of problems with that whole deal, just the way it's.
Yeah, it's a crazy, unique opportunity, and I'm not very happy about the whole deal, but it is what it is. I mean, it's different, but it reminds me of the work that was put in, and I participated in some of that, to get a 4-lane highway coming from the interstate to Aberdeen. I mean, that's something that Helen Miller and I and a whole group of other people worked on for probably a dozen years. And there was a crazy short 2-year span that the feds were actually flush with highway funds, and the numbers showed that it was a viable project, and partnering together with the group out of Pierre, because at that point in time, Pierre, South Dakota was the only state capital in the continental United States that wasn't served by a 4-lane highway. We were able to work through the federal legislature and through the state to get the funding approved to do that project, put a 4-lane highway from the interstate to Aberdeen and from Pierre to the interstate. And so we put a lot of work into trying to do some of those things, and sometimes narrow windows of opportunity, whether you like them or not, show up, and all this federal money, which I'm philosophically absolutely against, is there.
Well, I've said this on more than one occasion. If you look at what the governor has proposed in her budget address, prisons and additional cell space is clearly a priority for the state. They realize that they've got a problem, so I think this would be the year to convince them that counties also have that same problem, because she's already proposed a lot of money to add on to the prison in both Pierre and a new facility in Rapid City, along with some improvements to Sioux Falls. So prisons and jail space, cells, are clearly a priority for the state. Now, I don't think there'll be a better time to bring our issue to the forefront and say, hey, we have the same problems you have. You're putting money into the state facilities. We need some regional facilities to take the pressure off.
Well, and there are unique opportunities. The women's prison, I was there for the opening of that, and that's been, 20-plus years ago, but that's a partnership between the local county and the local police department. They have offices and dispatch housed in the women's prison. So these partnerships are not unheard of, they're not common. They don't like to do them, but they will do them if the circumstances are right, but they don't just happen.
I'm not opposed to spending the $3,000, and it's kind of like, you spend the $3,000, and if you get good results, it was well worth your money. You spend the $3,000 and you get no results, well, it's something you tried, probably won't happen again next year. That's the way I look at it. I think it's a venture. You try for $3,000, and maybe we end up with big dollars out of a good deal. If we get the report back and we haven't had any results, I don't think we ever need to try it again. That's the way I look at it.
All right, we have a draft agreement in front of us. I would entertain some type of action be taken, or if no action is taken, we'll contact Julia.
Well, just to reiterate, it's up to $3,000 actual expenses. Anything beyond that potentially would have to be pre-approved.
Right.
So,
And there's little, if any, indication that it'll ever go to a summer
Right.
study, so I don't think any issue particularly that she's working on will end up in a summer study, so that will probably be the extent of our expenditures for this legislative session.
right, as a group, we beat our head against the wall for the portion of the liquor tax, the sales tax, a whole variety of different things, trying to remove the cap, to use what we do have as a revenue source, but the flexibility that was taken away from us 25, 26 years ago.
And if I had a nickel for every time South Dakota counties tried to get a nickel a drink tax passed, I'd have a lot of nickels.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you could get her to sponsor a bill that would use sales tax money to service tip bonds. Wouldn't that be nice?
We can have that conversation.
No,
She gets that done, the $3,000 will be worth it.
Well, I mean, that's about as crazy as what we're talking about here in this whole thing, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, really, when you got a beef packing plant that's probably making anywhere from $500 to $1,000 on a carcass, and you know dang well that when they sell that meat, they're getting sales tax on it, and the county property tax has to service those bonds. How does that make sense? Doesn't make sense.
Well, it's because our predecessors 125 years ago
Well, here
decided
we
they
are.
didn't
We got
want
an opportunity
they
to
didn't
have
want
a
part of the
lobbyist
sales tax.
change that all for us.
Yeah, well, you were there for 8 years. It's not that easy, is it? It's crazy circumstance. I'm not excited about it, but I think it's an opportunity that we should take a really good stab at. So I would make a motion to approve the lobbyist contract as presented.
One other comment before, well, we can need a second, I guess, before I make another comment.
For the sake of discussion, I'll second it.
It leaves it open-ended. I mean, you're gonna give her $3,000 and then give me a break. I mean, she's gonna be collecting on whatever she advocates for. After that, there'll be bills coming and we'll be approving them. So, for whatever that's worth, that's where I'm at with that. It leaves it wide open.
No, it doesn't, and I don't have any intention of allowing that to happen. It's up to 3,000 actual expenses submitted, and anything beyond that, if it comes to that, which is not likely, would have to be pre-approved.
A lot of times what the intent is and what happens, that happens in Pure all the time, unintended consequences.
No, that's what's in the contract or the agreement, so.
All right, any further discussion? Comments, questions?
Well, I guess if, you got the $3,000 up and any additional expense, I guess her additional expenses, she'd have to say to me that she actually did something for us. I mean, I wouldn't care. That's the way I look at it. That's why I asked about the report. I mean, I'm not opposed to the $3,000, but in other words, like Dennis, if it goes to $8,000, $10,000, well, hey, but that's why my intent was to make sure that if she's gonna bill us for an additional $1,000 or $1,500, I wanna see what she accomplished.
Right.
Is where I was going with that.
Well, and
I agree.
if the way the system works is if something doesn't pass and if it's deemed to be a viable issue, then that's when they pass it on to a summer study, for a summer study committee to hear. And if whatever it is she's working on for Brown County would rise to that level, she would have to come in and ask for permission to attend those meetings. We would decide whether it was warranted or not, and we would have to give approval before she attended any summer study meeting. And I find it hard to believe that any of the issues she would be representing us on would rise to that level myself, but I've been wrong before.
Well, I probably even would have felt better if she'd have come here and the solar program than have it just dropped in here. You know, that might have made me feel a little bit better about it too, but here we got all this, I mean,
Well, she's probably in committees hearing.
we should have probably had this done a month ago or 6 weeks ago, rather than in the middle of the session too.
Well,
I agree, and that's what the legislators told us a year ago, that you guys need to get your ducks in a row. We've been trying to do that, the study and everything else, and I would have preferred to have that study done in November, and here we are at the end of January, and it's still not done.
It was my understanding we were supposed to have it before the end of the year, and then we would have had that available for the beginning of the legislative session we'd have the facts in front of us.
Well, we wouldn't have this dropped on us either, you know, if, 2 weeks into the session.
Well, it was actually the first day of session that it was originally discussed, and we discussed it last week as a matter of discussion, and didn't want to make a decision last week because we didn't have an agreement. Sometimes
We're talking about the concept, and we wanted to see what it would actually
when
look
we
like.
only meet every Tuesday, it's a little hard to make things happen overnight because of the process. There's still a lot of bills left to be introduced. Like I said, they're expecting, and I'll know more tomorrow when we have our conference call, but they're expecting 700 to 800 bills to be introduced this year. All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
And I'm sorry, Doug, I did not hear how you voted.
Yay.
Aye, okay. Motion passes. We will get this agreement to Julie for signature. She does have the ability to, I sent you that link, that it can be signed. I don't know if that's something we can do electronically or how
Yeah,
you
we
wanna
can
handle
accept
that.
it electronically.
Okay,
yeah.
All right, well, thank you for the discussion, and I fully understand both of your concerns,
Thank you.
and we'll hope for a favorable outcome. The only other thing that I have is, I was contacted by Rachel earlier. They have the opportunity to submit a grant request to, I believe it's the South Dakota Community Foundation and they want to use the grant to put in a play area in the current kids zone at the fair that could be utilized not only during the fair, but it would enhance the camping atmosphere, you know, throughout the summer for other campers. But the deadline is February 1st, so she was just wondering if she needed our approval to submit that grant for consideration.
What is there like a match requirement or anything?
I'm not sure, I could call and ask her, she didn't go
Or,
into it.
we could also, usually there's an award contract that
Yep.
comes with the grant, and that would be your opportunity to approve or deny at that point. You could deny the award.
Okay, so we can just say it's okay to go
I
ahead
would
and
say she
submit.
can proceed with it, and then when it comes time to actually sign the grant agreement, when we get the contract back.
Can either accept or deny.
Yeah.
Based on what we do.
Yeah, and then I'll visit with her about that grant.
Okay, yeah, if you get a hold of her, tell her she's got the ability or the go-ahead, the green light to do it.
She's got a couple days to get her done.
Yeah.
I think that's great. Finally, maybe the county will have an opportunity to get a grant for, you know, something like that. We've tried it before and have never really had that opportunity.
Yeah, I think it'd be a nice addition to that
Absolutely.
kid zone during the fair and throughout the year. So
Yeah.
Why we do it.
that's all I have. Is anything else to come before the Brown County Commission?
I need an exec for personnel.
Exec for personnel.
Move to go into exec?
Sorry.
Motion by Feldheim, second by Weiss to go into exec for personnel. Ross, do you have anything additional?
I do not.
Okay, so it'd be just personnel. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
I want to get up there, yep. I'm gonna get pouring concrete up there.
Cameras on. Okay, we're out of exec and with no action taken.
One quick note, had a conversation with Brad Hart yesterday, and he agreed to $1,500 a month, a year, $1,500 a year. for-
Please do it down.
For 3 years.
I got room for a dump site in my
All
$1,500 a
for
year
yours for that.
for 3 years. So,
I think
anyway, I'll call Mike Scott and have him put some kind of a contract together, and then we'll get it to Brad. And I'm not sure, I thought about that too, I'm not sure whether we've, and Mike should know that too, whether or not he's been paid, or whether there was any voucher or anything for 2021, because this would start 2022, this contract, so, anyway, yeah.
Good.
All right.
For the good of the order, anybody...
That is it, so.
Okay, for the good of the order, anybody in everybody's first legislative Cracker Barrel session is Saturday, 10 a.m. The new conference room that's up above in, the Barnett Center.
Yeah, that Kessler Mounds or whatever it's
Yeah,
called.
overlooking the football field and stuff, 10 to noon.
Oh, okay. I have to cater an event at the restaurant on Saturday, so if I get done in time, I'll stop, but if not, I won't be able to be there. Anything else to come before the Brown County Commission this morning?
Move to adjourn.
Second. Motion by Feldheim, second by Weiss to adjourn. We are adjourned.